Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Dauntless Club and members of past sports clubs, we welcome you here to the gathering this evening, and we very much appreciate your presence. Dauntless Club felt that it was appropriate to honor previous clubs that existed during the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s for their contribution to sports, and therefore, together with members from these clubs, this function was put together, planned, and organized. During that era, the clubs that existed were Sporting Club, Honved, Atoms, Green Street, Grenville Football Club, Guava Football Club, Hurricane, and Dauntless. There's one other club which existed before these called All Blacks. This was before our time, but I thought it would be remiss of me if they were not mentioned here today. During that period, the two secondary schools at the time, GBSS and PBC, were allowed to compete in the same league with these clubs because it was felt that knowledge and skills of the game will be passed on to these young and aspiring footballers and cricketers. The youthful players always thought it a feather in their cap when they had to rub shoulders with these senior island players. We feel that these clubs contributed immensely to the social fabric and well-being of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Consequently, this gathering here is just a token gesture to show that our gratitude, appreciation, and respect to these members of those clubs for their fortitude and tenacity in keeping football and cricket a vibrant and very much alive sports in Grenada. And this laid the foundation for what we have today. Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to end this with Dauntless' turning motto, forever dauntless in the face of adversity. And on this note, and in the spirit of the season, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now we'll move on to a citation by Mr. Roy O'Neill, the chairman of the organizing committee.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, good evening, everyone. Exactly 5 years ago, December 21st, 2017, Dauntless Club held a highly successful reunion which attracted not only local surviving members, but a number of overseas members and residents as well. By popular demand, a follow-up reunion was planned for the week of March 2020. However, it had to be canceled because of the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the interim, a number of members sadly went to the great beyond. Yet, many surviving members were of the view that an event should be held, and it was suggested that other clubs of that era, 1950s to 1980s, should be invited to join with Dauntless on this occasion. As a result, members of Atoms, Honved, Green Street FC, Sporting Club, St. John's FC, Hurricanes FC, St. Paul's, Happy Hill, Mount Moritz, among others, were consulted, and the idea quickly gained traction. So here we are this evening. The 2017 event featured a presentation of the history of Dauntless and the club's activities in the sporting disciplines of football, cricket, track and field, and basketball, as well as other activities like debating and a variety of community events. The surviving foundation members, namely, are Sir Walter St. John, Dr. Derek Spencer, Dr. Roy Gill, and Mr. Dunbar McIntyre. They were also recognized and presented with plaques. Dauntless was regarded as one of the finest clubs in Grenada for several years. It was founded in 1947 and became defunct in the early 1980s due mainly to the political turbulence of the 70s and 80s and the resultant migration. The club assisted in the development of scores of young men in the sporting disciplines mentioned and was considered by many as a model as far as club structure is concerned. What we have noticed in recent times, with very few exceptions, is that a number of teams, some of them quite successful, do not seem to have a vision or a motto, but simply participate as a group and parade their winning trophies without any long-term vision. This evening's activity is not only to celebrate the successes and indeed the existence of the clubs of yesteryear, but to try to pass on to the current generation of young sportsmen and women the spirit of friendly rivalry, camaraderie, and most importantly, the structure which assisted in personal and community development and ultimately nation building. I know that quite a number of you present would remember the days when strong clubs like Hurricane of Victoria and St. John's FC would rival and defeat the likes of Green Street, Atoms, Honved, and Dauntless of St. George's. They would come down with their supporters to Queen's Park in the old-time wooden buses named Comfort, Content, Sunlight, and Cutty Peters' bus, I can't remember the name, and back their teams to the hilt. I recall a particular game one Sunday afternoon at Queen's Park when 6 buses came from Guelph to support their team against Dauntless. Dauntless fans told them that they would go back home with 1 goal for each bus, meaning that the score would be 6-0 in favor of Dauntless. Sampat Harbin, Pinky Chase, and company did not disappoint. It was a lonely and depressing ride back to the town that never sleeps. For the return fixture at the now Cuthbert Peters Park, Dauntless drew the game, but in spite of that, the tarpaulin shutters on the bus which Dauntless team and supporters traveled on were pulled down to ensure that the stones thrown did not damage the team members and fans who were on board. At this time, I will be a bit nostalgic, and I know I would get some blows for omitting some names, but I will risk naming 3 to 7 well-known players on some of the clubs of the era. I'll start with Dauntless, my own club. We had Walter, the St. John's Walter and Monty, Sampat Harbin, Roy Big Dog Redhead, Wakax Clarkson, Glenn Sylvester, Cecil Pinky Chase, Michael Archibald, Richard McIntyre, and Elliot Maguire. Atoms, the Steele brothers, Johnny and Raymond, Theo Papitet Redhead, Ted Walker, Joe Gibbs, Alistair Telesford, George Jackson, and Mello Peters. Green Street, Leslie Luss Howard, Mayor Clennell Dow, Boca Romaine, and Boragi Sylvester. Sporting Club, we had Bruce Bain, Tom Pace, Bella Thomas, Bogo Wiltshire, and Seeley, the goalkeeper. Honved, we had Joe Charter, the barber, Barnes Cummings, Pangalang, Dandarat, and Alva de Freitas. St. John's, Lugaroo, Knight, Doya Marquez, who is here with us this evening. And Hurricanes, we had Ashley George, his brother Alston Heads George, Motel Charles, and Pat Fletcher. Happy Hill, we had Keith Mitchell, Kent Mitchell, Victor Julian, and the Bartholomew brothers. St. Paul's, Pee Wee Adams, Hubert Lord, Robbie Robinson, and Richard Smith. And Montmorris, we had Edwards brothers, the Dowdens, the Medfords, and the Graves. I remember a particular event. I was still at school, and a good form mate of mine, we went to see a game. I think it was a Sporting Club playing GBSS. And Tom Pace was the goalkeeper. And he asked Bogo Wiltshire to pass the ball back to him, as goalkeeper. It was the safest play to make. Bogo lined up, and he actually gave a shot which ended in the roof of the net. We haven't forgotten it, because I saw my good friend Dikoto about 6 months ago, and he recalled that particular event. The other one had to do with Montmorris. In 1973, the Australian cricket team came to Grenada, and you had people like the great Dennis Lilly and Jeff Thompson, some of the greatest fast bowlers of the time. They played against the Windward Islands. And would you believe, Windward Islands gave them a good run for the money. However, Australia, I think, won the game, and they had some time off. So some of them went up to Montmorris, where they met their kith and kin. It was shortly after that you had the big exodus of people from Montmorris to Australia. Shortly after that, we heard that in Montmorris, the cemetery was closed. Hardly any, they put on the gates of the cemetery, put padlocks on them, and they said no more funerals in Montmorris. And you know the reason? They say all those graves and them gone to Australia. Anyway, another one I should tell you about, and this one was actually given when we did the presentation 5 years ago under cricket. And I'm quoting the exact information that was provided then. While Dauntless played consistently well and had a number of players represent Grenada and the Windward Islands at cricket, that sport played second fiddle to football. Some of the players who represented Grenada include William Pablo Gittins, Patrick Sylvester, Glenn Sylvester, Sampat Harbin, Kenneth Tiloti Hood, Victor Joseph, Richard McIntyre, Robert St. John, Vesta Constantine, and schoolboys Ashley Roberts and Michael Archibald. The rival with Atom's club was also legendary, and unfortunately for Dauntless, Atoms generally proved to be the most successful side, with players such as Papitet Redhead, Tyrone Walker, Joe Gibbs, and the Steele brothers. I was told that one year in the Dauntless Atoms Derby, Dauntless won the toss and sent Atoms to take first strike. We of Dauntless had 3 or 4 bowlers who bowled at a military medium, and they peppered the Atoms batsmen with some short pitch deliveries. When Dauntless batsmen's turn came to bat on the following day, hardly any one of them showed up. The 2 umpires, however, were there. They did not relish the thought of facing Papitet and the other Atoms fast bowlers, so they lost the game by default. For one time, and the record show, the motto of Dauntless changed from forever dauntless in the face of adversity to discretion is the better part of valor. The Atoms players did not let them live that down. But that was only one day, and just a blip in the club's reach low. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's event is not just for a bunch of old sportsmen meeting to reminisce and celebrate the past. This is no doubt admirable, and one thing is for sure, those days will never return. But based on what most of us are witnessing these days is a lack of club structure and greater community involvement which we grew up with. To assist us in staging this activity, we approached a number of commercial establishments for sponsorships and also the Ministry for Sports. Most of them thought it was a good idea and contributed mainly in kind. But some asked that forms be filled out and needed to know what the club or organization was about, its aims, objectives, and vision. Some companies stated that they were disappointed in the responses received from today's clubs, most of them, and they're really teams. In many cases, none. These teams were mainly asking for assistance in purchasing boots and equipment, and once they worked up a sweat, as the saying goes, they feel it's a good achievement. We of the organizing committee acknowledge that we are not as young as we used to be when we were in the prime of our lives, or even have the influence in the companies or organizations we spent our careers with. However, we informed the Ministry for Sports that we would make ourselves, some of us, available to give input in the development of the national sports policy, or from time to time, provide mentoring in cases where communities are organizing clubs. In times past, as youngsters, when we attended club meetings, minutes were taken and discussions held among members with a view to improving our organizations. In short, we, the members of past vibrant organizations, would like to leave behind a lasting positive legacy for posterity. At this time, I must acknowledge the presence of former Dauntless members, Glenn Sylvester, who came in from New York, and Cecil Pinky Chase, who resides in Texas, specifically for the event. Dr. Wilfred Charles, who lives in Maryland, sends his regrets. He was the first to commit to attending, but because of family commitments, is unable to be here. 2 founding members of Dauntless, Sir Walter St. John and Dunbar McIntyre, who were here for the 2017 reunion, spoke with me within the last few days, and they too expressed regrets for the unavoidable absence and extend best wishes to everyone. As I end this presentation, it would be remiss of me if I did not mention the members of the organizing committee. I again am privileged to head the committee, as I did for Dauntless reunion exactly 5 years ago. The other members are Charlie George, Elliot Maguire, Selwyn Creft, who is not here this evening, and resident overseas, Garvin Keynes Douglas. All ex-Dauntless members. From Atoms, Raymond Mohawk Steele and Paul Roberts. I ask that the other committee members join me at the podium as well as Glenn and Pinky. Where's Charlie? Still? Yeah. Glenn and Pinky. Right. They all deserve a warm round of applause. I would also like all members of clubs of yesteryear who are present, visiting or not, to join us up here. I see people like Sladdy, Ashley Roberts, Carl Cherubin, Marquez, Dwyer, the Archibald brothers.
Scott. What's Scott's name?
Elton Scott. I call Sladdy here. Will you please join me up here? Ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy that this evening's proceedings have attracted so many of you who experienced the good old days when there was no TV or internet. But one thing was for sure, we were a strong community, talking with each other and not just texting, even though we were in the same open space. We would meet at the old Queen's Park after school or work, stop in the small shops or bars in River Road or the Carenage in St. George's, the Lance and Gore in Victoria and Grenville, and sometimes at members' homes after a win or a loss at football or cricket, having a beer, rum and coke, or a red spot, and eating sandwiches or pilau. Our communities were alive and well then. Let's not let them continue to decline and die. For if we of that era allow this to happen, we would have failed our community and country in the task of nation building. So let's continue to contribute to our Grenadian society and make a worthwhile contribution, not only for ourselves, but for generations to come. I thank you all. Huh?
That's one of them $1 million Apple name.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Apple man, I can't buy none.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next item on the agenda is the presentation of awards to some members of the sporting fraternity. The organization investigated those of sportsmen and sportswomen who we feel contributed a lot to sports in Grenada, and we felt we should give them some award in appreciation for that effort. The first individual who was selected is Fitzgerald Naka Joseph.
Good evening, all. This is a biography on Naka Joseph, Fitzgerald Naka Joseph. Naka is from Grove St. John's and has primarily been coaching basketball, but has also coached netball and martial arts. He has also been involved in sports administration. I got to know Naka during my stint as executive secretary of the Grenada National Basketball Association during the period of 1987 to 1990. In 1988, Naka coached the Grenada national basketball team at the Windward Islands Basketball Championship, placing third. Now, third might sound good, but that's one before last. In 1989, the Grenada national basketball team, coached by Naka, placed second in the OECS Basketball Championship held in Dominica. Antigua beat Grenada by only 2 points in that crucial game. The Windward Islands Basketball Championship was held in Grenada in 1990 and was won by the Grenada national team, again coached by Naka. However, Naka's accomplishments go way beyond that period. 1985 to 1987, head coach of the Trubacac United Basketball Club in Trinidad. 1987 to 2009, head coach and technical director, Grenada National Basketball Association. 1987 to present, head coach, Sissons Sparklers Basketball Club, Grenada. During that period, Sparklers won 19 out of 29 basketball tournaments. They toured Trinidad, defeated the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, one of the top Trinidad teams at that time, and also toured Barbados, St. Vincent, Dominica, and St. Kitts, giving creditable performances in all islands. 2000 and 2001, Naka completed the National Coaching Certification Program, levels 1, 2, and 3 in Canada. He was unable to complete levels 4 and 5, the highest level, because of financial constraints. Naka has attended 10 basketball coaching clinics in the USA, including clinics with the world-famous Bobby Knight and Mike Krzyzewski, and has himself conducted 12 basketball clinics and/or camps in Guyana, Trinidad 5, St. Vincent 2, St. George's University 2, and at the Huron Heights School in Canada. In 1988, the USA Amateur Basketball Association sent coach Marv Hohenberger to conduct a coaching clinic with the coaches in Grenada at the request of the Grenada National Basketball Association. During his stay, Marv expressed his amazement at the basketball coaching knowledge of Naka Joseph. He was so impressed that he invited Naka to stay at his home in Indiana for 2 weeks on 2 separate occasions following his return to the USA. Naka Joseph has assisted most of the 25 young basketballers who have obtained scholarships in the USA between 1999 and 2022. 19 have been successful in obtaining the bachelor's degree, and 6 have been successful in obtaining their master's degree. 6 of those scholars are now playing professional basketball abroad. Michael Bonaparte, Ireland; Leon Philippe, France; Daniel Regis, France; Akim Robertson, Switzerland; Jehu Lafayette, Spain; Hakim Simon, Germany, but he is not yet active. Naka has also assisted Grenada's first pro netballer, Lataisha Kato, with her physical training before she joined the Celtic Dragons in the English Super League. When Letitia joined the team, they were at the bottom of the table, but within 3 years, they moved to the finals of the English Super League. Fitzgerald Naka Joseph is also an author, having penned 3 books. The first book, From Tigers to Sparklers, chronicles the history of basketball in Grenada. The second book, The Energy of Gove, chronicles the sporting history of the parish of St. John's. While the third book, Peter Perry Ponder, 1927 to 1988, tells the history of Grenada's most gifted footballer, who was from Gove. I am sure that after listening to all Mr. Joseph's accomplishments, you will assume that he has received lots of support from the National Olympic Council, the Ministry of Sports, and the National Lottery. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. Anaka has had to spend over 50,000 of his own money to carry out his programs. Naka has submitted many projects for funding: an indoor basketball court, which was funded but never constructed, a coaching project to have local coaches trained overseas, a project to take a team to the United States to play against Division I college basketball teams before the start of the regular season. Even funds that were made available for basketball development in the region from the Olympic Association were never received by the GNBA, the Grenada National Basketball Association. In conclusion, I have challenged NACA to produce Grenada's first NBA basketballer, but this can only be achieved if he is given all the support he requires. St. Vincent had an NBA player. Why not Grenada? Basketball offers the young people of the young boys and girls to further their education and to develop their sporting skills, culminating in a lucrative career. I sincerely hope that we can do whatever possible to further expand the basketball operations in Grenada, and wish to sincerely thank all of you for attending this function. Do have a good evening and enjoy a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you all. I will now like to call on Ms. Lucy Joseph, who will collect the plaque for NACA.
Ladies and gentlemen, the second award, or should I say awardee, his name is Alston Heads George. He hails from the parish of St. Mark. He represented Grenada in both cricket and football. Most fans remember him as a stalwart defender for Hurricanes Football Club, for whom he played for 14 consecutive years. But not many of us know him for his cricketing prowess. He actually represented Grenada for 2 years on the national cricket team, and among his teammates was Raymond Mohawk Steele. His sporting career was a profile in courage. He once toured Dominica and Antigua with the national football team. In Dominica, he sustained a rather serious eye injury, which required his eye being bandaged. When he got to Antigua, he removed the bandage and played. 1 year later, while playing for Hurricanes, he went to the river for a bath and got a deep gash below his heel from a piece of glass. He bandaged the foot and played the game. After the match, he showed his teammates the wound. They were all amazed he could even walk. He was also on the Grenada team to St. Lucia in 1972 and played against the Trinidad Regiment team in the early 1970s. Later on, he toured with the ex-national teams to Dominica, Antigua, and St. Vincent. Fitness was his priority. He never appeared tired during a game. That's why he is also called the Tank. I now ask Cecil Pinky Chase to come up and present the plaque to Daya Marquez, who will receive on behalf of Heads. The third and final presentation of plaques is to none other than one Michel Hercules. Michel has got a pretty impressive bio, and I'd give you the highlights. Recognized as one of the most dominant and versatile athletes of our era, and considered to be also one of Grenada's best female all-rounders, Michel Hercules holds the distinction and honor of representing Grenada in 5 sporting disciplines: track and field, netball, badminton, football, and women's basketball. At the club level, she represented St. Joseph's Convent St. George's, her alma mater, Long Island Striders Athletic Club, Evergreen Jets Netball Club, and in our golden years, All-Timers Netball Club. In essence, her athletic career blossomed under the tutelage of Tony Henry in the late 1960s to mid-1970s, while participating as a member of Long Island Striders, and by extension, Grenada, at the top track meetings at the time. Jetstar Sports, the Lenten Games, the Whitsuntide Games in Grenada, Independence Games in Barbados, and the Windward Islands Championships. In 1972, Michel led the St. Joseph's Convent team to victory at Intercall for the first time in the school's history, and personally established an Intercall record in long jump seniors, which remained unbroken for 13 years. That same year, she traveled to St. Lucia as part of the national team to participate in the Windward Islands Championships, and made history by becoming the first female athlete to win a gold medal for Grenada in track and field in regional competitions. She was a member of the Grenada team at the 1978 Commonwealth Games in Edmonton, Canada, serving as team chaperone, and in 1987 was honored for her contribution to the sport by the IAAF, that's the International Amateur Athletic Federation, on the occasion of their 75th anniversary. Her achievements in netball range from leading the SJC, that's St. Joseph's Convent team, in local tournaments, to representing Grenada in regional and international tournaments. She was a flag bearer for Grenada at the 1979 World Netball Championships, and is a former president, treasurer, and public relations officer of the Grenada Netball Association. The Grenada Badminton Association was established in 1978, and Michel is one of the 5 founding members. As a player, she has held the national ladies singles, doubles, and mixed titles in consecutive years, and has represented Grenada in regional events in Antigua and Aruba. The only female to have done so, Michelle managed the national under-16 football team overseas, as well as the Grenada Youth Olympic team to France. In her corporate capacity, she was instrumental in providing sponsorship to the Fontenoy and Queen's Park Rangers football clubs, and in jump-starting the marketing of the National Stadium. And that's the first stadium, not the second one, the one that was blown down by Ivan. With a one-off donation of $250,000 to the government of Grenada. She served on the first board of directors of the National Lotteries Authority. I now invite Mr. Glenn Sylvester to present the plaque for Michelle. The plaque actually reads, Distinguished Service Award presented to Michelle Hercules in recognition of sterling contribution to sports, dated today's date. So if Michelle can come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to move a toast, and we hope that everybody, or nearly everybody's got a drink so they can toast. And this toast is to absent friends. Absent friends, that means a lot. It means those who have gone to the great beyond, and also members who are overseas or even locally, and they are unable to be here tonight. So would you please join me in lifting your glasses for a toast to absent friends? To absent friends. I'd invite Committee Member Elliot Maguire to move a brief vote of thanks.
Good night, everyone. I'm sure Roy invited me to the podium with a bit of trepidation because the last time, 5 years ago, he thought that I went on and rambled too much. This time I will not do it. I have a prepared script, and I will stick to the script. You understand? So, Roy, have no fear that I will ramble too much. Now, I must say thanks to everybody that has come, especially those who have come from abroad. You may look around as somebody WhatsApp this afternoon and ask for any of the dignitaries that may have been here tonight, that will be coming tonight. But as far as I'm concerned, everyone just has to look at himself or his neighbor, and he will see a dignitary there, because we are all, and I all accept everyone as a dignitary being here. Yeah. Now, the last time, as I said, I had a little bit to drink, so I rambled on, but this time I'm not feeling too well, so Pastor Roberts, I had nothing to drink but ginger beer. I was in a Muslim country too, so I have not been drinking, so I have not been practicing drinking for the last couple of weeks. So I am totally devoid of any alcohol. My system is off of it. as I said, let me stick to the script and thank all those from abroad, especially as we have been mentioned before, Glenn Sylvester, who I've been in touch with for many months about this thing, and Pinky Chase, who at one stage did not want to come, but he gave me all sorts of excuses that he didn't have his passport, he needed to renew his passport. But every week I keep bringing him. And eventually he said, well, he's a man of the army, so he'll get his passport. And he booked his passage before he got his passport, because he got a good deal. So thank you very much, Pinky, for coming, Glenn, and all the others from overseas. We see a lot of people who I don't readily recognize, and we thank you for coming. But most of all, we have to thank some of the people who made some contributions to this occasion. And we have to thank Netherlands Insurance. Some of us may need them in the not too distant future, especially if we drink too much and attempt to drive. And I don't hope you should do that. We want to thank certainly Mr. Strawn, who will not advocate drinking and driving. And we thank him and his company for their contribution towards this occasion. Speaking about drinking, we are grateful to the breweries, Wester Hall Rum, Grenada Distillers, Huggins, Brydens and Miners. They all made contribution to this occasion, and we thank them. And in the future, they also, I remembered, made the contributions in the last function we had 5 years ago, and we invite them to do that if we extend this this sort of function in the next year. We cannot go and say we do it in 2 years, because we don't know what sort of response we will get, and who we will get in 2 years' time. So I will advise the committee, if they want to do it, check out the people here and see if we can attempt to do it in a year's time. Okay? We talked about drinks, but we have to mention the food, which has always been good, and we must say thanks to Patrick for allowing us to come to this very what was a beautiful place on a Christmas time to enjoy ourselves and to enjoy each other's company. Patrick has given us a good deal on the night, and we thank him for that, his food. We also thank the DJ for his music, and I am sure that he would have loved us to dance, but I don't know if many of us will do that. Chris is Sampat's son, and Sampat has been mentioned many times tonight. And Chris, we thank you for coming and providing us with some nice soft music. I cannot end without thanking in a big way the gentlemen who made up the committee. It has been done already by people, but I have to personally thank them, because over the last 6 to 8 months, we have been meeting almost every week. It was a good social occasion for the 5 or 6 of us, but it's a sort of commitment that we made to see this occasion happen. And I must say that I would wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous and healthy New Year. I would not ramble on anymore. I will stick to the script, although there are many other things that have been mentioned. So I will hand you over to Roy at this stage. Thank you, Roy.
Garvin Keynes Douglas, the MC. Where is Mr. Keynes Douglas?
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are a few other companies that contributed to this function here tonight. Grenada Lotteries Authority, George F. Huggins and Company Grenada Limited, Brighton and Miners Grenada, Grenada Brewers Limited, West Hall Estate Limited, Grenada Distilleries Limited, Grenada Bottling Company Limited, and Dee's Sports Shop. Thank you very much.